Hey guys, this is Scott with the Potter's House and doing another Fingerprints of Yahweh uh, video. And here again, just remember these teachings are not to be real in depth, but maybe something you could share with a beginner or someone who is interested or someone you're trying to witness to. So we'll get right to it. In our first Fingerprints of Yah teaching that we did, we were in Genesis chapter 1 and really focused on verse 14. And we're going to be reading from the King James here again. This way, someone can't come around and say, well, you're using a uh, different translation or different version of the Bible, especially if they are a King James only person. So we're going to use the King James through these teachings. And it says in verse 14 of Genesis 1, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And the two words that we uh, picked out of that um, scripture was the words signs and the word seasons. And we saw that the word sign in here meant a mark, a signal, or an indicator of something. It could even mean, in the Greek, equivalent of that word means the same thing. Of course, the Hebrew word is ot. The Greek equivalent of that word is semeion, Semeion. And it means a sign, a mark. It also means miracles, which lead to something out of and beyond themselves. And then here's what we got the title for this series. It also means finger marks of God, finger marks of Yahweh. And so we looked at that, and then we looked at the word for seasons, which is moed. And we saw that this word is not referring to uh, spring, summer, fall, and winter. What it actually means, appointed time. Um, we look back at that word. It also kind of indicated a place where God has set for his people to meet, to concentrate on their relationship with him. But it is appointments. The Greek equivalent of that word is spelled Heorte, Heorte, and it actually means in the Greek, just along with the Hebrew, the Greek means holy festivals, is what that means. So they both are not referring to summer, spring, fall, winter. They're not referring to that, but they are referring to these appointments of Yahweh, these appointments of God. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you can refer back to our first fingerprints of Yah teaching that we do. We go a little bit more in depth on that subject, on those two words. And here again, these teachings aren't going to be more than maybe 15 or 20 minutes apiece, because I do want them to be used, or maybe can help someone in understanding these things. Like I said, a witnessing tool that you might can use, or something along in that manner. But when we think about the appointed times of Yahweh and what they are, there's always one chapter that a person can always go to where Yah list these times. And so I want us to go to Leviticus 23. We're just going to talk about Leviticus 23 here for just a short while. And really just one verse today. out of Leviticus 23 that we're going to look at. And that would be, let's begin at verse 1. It says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So one of the first things we want to look at here in this verse is the word feast. And this just goes back to kind of validate where we were at in Genesis, because when we look at this word feast, we have to ask ourselves the question, have we seen this word in any of the things that we've read so far? We've only looked at Genesis 1:14, and we've looked at Leviticus 23, 1 and 2. And so when it comes to this word feast, it should be a word that catches our eye, or the reader's eye. And when we look at the Hebrew for this word feast, here again is moed, and it means an appointed time, appointment, or a time to meet, a gathering. And so here again, even in the Greek language, it plays out that these are holy festivals. So yes, we can take this Leviticus 23 and trace it all the way back to Genesis chapter 1 when we're looking at these words. Okay, now let's go back just to verse 2, read the first part. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the, now let's put in here what we understand, the appointed times, or the holy festivals, or the festivals of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feast. Now, another word I want us to look at is the word convocation. This here is another word that is just oftentimes read right over, read right by when a person is reading in Leviticus 23. But this is another word that should catch our eye and cause us to inquire, what is these convocations? And I'm just going to give you just simple understanding of this word. The word convocation in the Hebrew means a rehearsal. And so when we understand that it is a rehearsal, then I always ask, our congregation and others, when it comes to this rehearsal, what do you rehearse for? But you rehearse for the actual event. The performance itself is what you are rehearsing for. Now, as we look at these fingerprints of God, this is also going to be something that we're going to want to remember, that these are rehearsals. They're rehearsals. Another word we to look at is just right before that. He says, which you are to proclaim to be holy convocations. Now, this word holy in the Hebrew is kadosh. We can, if we go to Revelation, if we go to the book of Isaiah, and the angels are saying, kadosh, 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 which is holy, holy, holy. This word also means separated. So the angels are declaring that God is separate, separate, separate. So here God is saying that these rehearsals are to be kadosh. They are to be holy. They are to be separate. This in itself should tell us also here that these are to be set aside. This is not to be treated as another day of the week or another time to celebrate, or like another type of party. These are separate things. So now, if we look at this again, just to go back, speaking to the children of Israel, and saying to them concerning the appointed times of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be separate. rehearsals. Even these are my feast. So now we're going to look at a phrase here and kind of kill an argument or destroy a myth, if we want to say it that way, that is often said about these appointed times that we have here, these feast days. Because this is what I'm fixing to say, is this is something that when you begin to walk this truth out, and if you call yourself Torah observant, if you call yourself a covenant keeper, if you call yourself Hebrew roots, however you refer to yourself in your walk, that you're walking this out, or even if you're just beginning, you're going to hear, or you may have already heard, where it is said that, well, these are Jewish things, or you're trying to be Jewish, or you want to be Jewish if you do these things. So this is even in this verse, in verse 2, where Yahweh lists these appointments that he is setting to meet with his people. Um, he tells us something that is often here again read over and not really focused on when it comes to these things. And so let's see if we can pick out one or two things out of this. So going back again to the beginning of verse 2, it says, "Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the appointed times, the feast of Yahweh, which ye shall proclaim to be holy, separate convocations, rehearsals. Even these are my appointed times, my appointments, my feasts." But he says in verse 2, "Speak unto the children of Israel." Now please note here that he does not say to speak unto the Jews. We have to understand that the Jews would have just been one tribe. Judah would have that's what would have been the Jews. So it would have just been to that tribe, if we're going to say this is to the Jews. But he says, "Speak unto the children of Israel." So you still may hear an argument, because now this is to Israel, the nation, the people of Israel. So you may still hear the argument, if you were to stop there, that still that's not for us today. We hear the phrase, "Well, we're Christian." It's one of the phrases that you might hear, one of the arguments that you might hear. But if we were to go to Romans, and we may do that in another uh, Fingerprints of Yah video, but Paul says that we are grafted in. We're grafted in. We're adopted into this family. And so we probably will look at that in another Fingerprints of Yahweh video. But he's not speaking to just one tribe, he's speaking to all of Israel, of which, if you are a child of his, you have become part of, you've been adopted into that family. So you've got that. So you are Israel. You are a part of Israel. But then he goes on to say, concerning the feast of Yah. Okay? So now Yahweh saying, concerning my feast, and even at the end of verse 2, he's even kind of hammers this point in again. Even these are my feast. Even these are my appointed times. These are my appointments. So here's what we're saying. I know this is real simple for some people to grasp hold of, those that have been in this a while. But here again, this isn't necessarily reaching out to those who have walked this walk for a while. This is reaching out to those who may be researching, may be digging, maybe wanting to understand. That's who this is for. Even a witnessing tool that you might can use. Hopefully you can share and use. But here, even Yahweh himself is saying, these are my feasts. These are my appointed times. He's not telling them that they belong to you. What he is saying is, they belong to me. They're mine. He's making them personal. And so we're going to end this fingerprints teaching just right here on verse 2. And I wanted to make this one, probably one subject at a time as we make these. And so as we look here, we're going to begin to look at these appointed times, these appointments of Yahweh and what he says that they are. And then begin to open them up and to see and to show that they really are for us today. So hoping this helps you, hoping you can take something out of this and share it and use it, or maybe even help you further your understanding. If you are new to, here again, like I said, Hebrew roots, covenants, commandment keepers, Torah observers, whatever one of those you fall in. Hopefully you found this helpful and useful. And until next time, we will say shalom.